Hello, Browns fans. Welcome to the Dawgland podcast. I am your host, Anthony Joki. Jackson McCurry alongside me, as always. Your Cleveland Browns have reported to training camp. Practice begins tomorrow. The 2026 NFL football season is underway. Jack, how we feeling? We finally made it here.
Football is back, baby. Let's go, man. I'm excited. Yes, expectations are low, but there's nothing that beats football season. And it's back. Just seeing guys walk into a facility today gets me fired up because that just means football is right around the corner, man.
Yeah, absolutely. If I remember correctly, the Hall of Fame game is next Thursday, which would be the first preseason game. So it's a great time, and we are all excited. I'm excited to get out to training camp in Berea the next couple of weeks. I plan to go to 3 or 4 of the practices that they're having. Was able to get some tickets for those, so I'm excited to go check them out and see how everything looks in person. Try and get as much content as I can for the show while I'm out there, and I'm excited to do that. But Jack, before we went live today, we actually got some breaking news, which it is a very rare occasion that we are able to get breaking news before we start. Usually it's after we are all done recording. And that is that the Cleveland Browns and Denzel Ward have agreed to a 2-year extension. There's been a lot made over his contract this offseason, and if you could throw up the graphic for me, that'd be greatly appreciated.
Gotcha.
It is a 2-year deal worth $62.2 million in total value. $52.3 million of that is guaranteed. We'll see how it breaks down on a year-by-year basis. I would imagine there's going to be a few void years in that to, spread out that cap hit. But the Cleveland Browns have decided to extend Denzel Ward, and you have to wonder, with all the trade talks and everything, what his value truly was on that market. But they decided to keep Denzel Ward after trading Myles Garrett this offseason, and your reaction to the Browns deciding to keep Denzel Ward here.
I love it. I mean, I kind of seen this coming. I mean, obviously the trade rumors were there. You have to wonder what his value was, but I mean, he made it known, and it's the quote that you put in the graphic that he said he wanted to stay in Cleveland. Obviously, Denzel is a Northeast Ohio kid through and through. He's never left the state of Ohio, obviously going from Nordonia to Columbus back to Cleveland. it only makes sense for him to stay here, perhaps finish his career as a Cleveland Brown. The way I look at this extension, Anthony, and I could be totally off, he had zero, I know this for a fact, he had zero guaranteed money left on the extension he signed a few years ago. So I'm pretty sure what they did was they guaranteed money. They gave him a pay raise. Obviously, he's the top corner in the game based on annual yearly value. But they made that contract easier, gave him a pay raise and some guaranteed money to say, hey, here's your new deal for the next 2 years, and then come next offseason, maybe we'll rework it and give you a long term, maybe tack on a couple more years, and you can finish your career as a Brown. Because he's obviously this will be his 9th year. He's been a part of the Dog Pound since 2018, our 2nd year of the podcast. So for Denzel to remain a Cleveland Brown, and to say he wants to be here, I think that just shows a commitment from both sides.
Yeah, and to be honest, they really couldn't afford to trade him at all when you look at the current state of the cornerback room, unless you were getting a player back in return, kind of like they did when they traded Greg Newsome for Campbell. So, you had to keep him, and I'm glad that they're kind of doing right by him, guaranteeing some money, or a lot of money. 52.3 million is a lot of money that they're guaranteeing over the next couple seasons. So, very excited to continue to have the Warden on the lake. He'll be 31 when this deal ends. You might have another more couple years after that. I know there is the injury history, so that's always something that you have to concern yourself with when it comes to Denzel Ward. But the I guess a true veteran leader of the defense is locked up for the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, him and Carson Swessinger are the leaders of the defense now. I mean, it's been known, but it's now just for sure that it's going to be that way. Yeah, he'll be what? This will be 10 seasons after the deal is finished this year. He's entering season number 9. So like you said, he'll be 31. He could probably still play a few more years. Obviously, the concussions were a concern the first couple years of his career because he was getting them at a pretty alarming rate, and we were all pretty worried about him. But the last few years, he's been healthy. He played 15 games last year, 16 the year before that. I think 14 or 15 the year before that. So he's tended to stay healthy for the most part. Obviously, hamstring injuries happen. A concussion can happen at any time, but Denzel has proven he can stay healthy. He's been consistently one of the top 10 corners in the game, and the Browns have committed that to him with 2 contract extensions now. Now he's just got to continue to be that leader on and off the field. Obviously, he's done great things for the community in Northeast Ohio when it comes to getting defibrillators in facilities, because that's how he lost his dad. And after the Damar Hamlin thing a few years back, that obviously ramped up efforts to make that more of a addressing need. So Denzel's been great on and off the field, a true leader, and he's going to remain a dog at least for the next couple seasons.
Yeah, and I'm very curious about this because he has made 5 different Pro Bowls so far, and how close is he to hitting that Hall of Fame threshold? Is he close to it? I know he's been a very good corner for a very long time. Obviously, the results of the football team haven't been the best. He's had 2 playoff appearances, 1 playoff win. Is he a Hall of Famer? Do we need to win more for him to get there? Like, how close is he in your eyes?
It's tough with Denzel. He doesn't put up like the sexy stat production numbers for a corner. We looked it up. He has never made an all pro team, but there's been so many great corners in the last decade. It's really hard to get onto an all pro team with that. He's been to 5 Pro Bowls in 8 seasons, which I think is a pretty good statistical mark. We mentioned, like, I was looking at the Ring of Honor. Minifield and Dixon aren't in the Ring of Honor. I know that's kind of reserved for guys going into the Hall of Fame. The only one that's not in the Browns Ring of Honor is Clay Matthews. But obviously,
who should
like,
be in the Hall of Fame?
Who should be? Yeah, there's no doubt about it. We made that campaign a few years back, and obviously the voters didn't see it because obviously if the Browns have won a Super Bowl in the 80s, Clay Matthews is probably a Hall of Famer, but he didn't get the all pro statistic or accolades. He made quite a few Pro Bowls, but just didn't get the recognition that he ultimately deserved. But Denzel's kind of in the same boat. Like, he gets the Pro Bowl accolades, but he hasn't made an All-Pro team. He does have 18 career interceptions, and I'm sure if you stacked him up against corners in the last decade, I don't know where ultimately he ranks among those. He's one behind Joe Hayden for the most by a Browns defensive back since '99. So that, I think that means something. Obviously, he's been one of the best corners in franchise history. But the Browns probably need to start winning. If he can make some playoffs and have some big plays and perhaps make an All-Pro team or two, he keeps racking up the Pro Bowls, even though I don't think that's an accolade that does matter in Hall of Fame voting. Joe Thomas proves that. Other guys have proven that. He probably won't make the Hall of Fame. He's kind of probably a fringe guy, just like a Joel Bitonio, but he probably ultimately won't make it when it's all said and done.
All right, how about this? Say he plays these last 2 seasons with us and then goes somewhere for 1 year and that team happens to win the Super Bowl and he's a decent contributor. Does that get him in?
It could. It very well could. I mean, he's been great. I mean, like we said, he's consistently a top 10 corner. He doesn't put up the production number wise, but throw the tape on and you see how great of a corner Denzel Ward is. We've seen the receivers in Cincinnati talk about how great he is. Other receivers have complimented his play. Obviously, his peers and the coaches and the fans have voted him to 5 Pro Bowls, so that means something as well. He's been a top 100 player on NFL Network, I think, a few times as well. So Denzel's respected by the football community. I just unfortunately think until he racks up a few more accolades, the Hall of Fame is probably out of reach as things stand.
Yeah, and it's very close. And the tough thing too is like he doesn't put up the gaudy numbers because teams don't throw at him, and that's something you have to factor in too. You know, teams just try to stay away from him as much as possible, and typically he's on the best receiver on the other team, or that the other team has the offer. So it's a very interesting conversation to have to see whether or not he makes it.
So I was looking at his career stats real quick, and this is Pro Football Reference, which I know different sites are going to have different stats, but you say teams don't throw at him. This is the thing. In 2023, he was thrown at 66 times. It was 32 completions for 338 yards, and he only allowed 1 touchdown. Now, 2024, he definitely had a step back. I think we all can admit that as Browns fans. He gave up 716 yards and 4 touchdowns on 77 targets. And then in 2025, he came back somewhat to that Pro Bowl great corner level that we know he is. He only allowed 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. So I think teams, I don't know if he was hurt during the 2024 season. Obviously, that was a tough season for all of us, Browns fans, players, front office people, etc. It was just a tough year. But he came back to earth in 2025, and teams quit throwing at him because obviously the yardage, it was split in half. Like, he was not a factor at all on the field. Or he was a factor, just the offensive coordinators decided we're not going to make him a factor.
Yeah, and like I said, he's always going up against whether it's Jamar Chase or whoever else defensively. So he's like right on the edge, and maybe over these next couple of years he can cement himself. Being in the Hall and getting in that Browns Ring of Honor for sure, which would be great to see, especially a kid who's from around here, went to Ohio State, and played probably 10 seasons for us. As long as he finishes out the deal here, which signed to that 2-year deal, he should.
Not to throw jabs, but maybe he can go from Cleveland to Canton.
Oh boy. It's first day of people reporting, and we're throwing haymakers over here.
Hey, I just got a 95 jersey because it was on clearance at Fanatics. I love Miles, but let's be honest. I had to throw the jab just because it was there.
I have to show you, and I'll send you a picture of it later, the jersey that I was able to get a couple weeks ago. I got one of the very old school Mitchell and Ness Joe Thomas jersey where everything is really nicely stitched. And I got it at a pretty good price too, so I'll send you a picture of that after the show. But
please do.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we have a couple other. You got repping right there on your shirt that you got. A couple other small news items before we get to the big meat of the podcast, and that is that the Browns placed Malik Collins on the active PUP list, where she is still able to practice, coming back from his injury at the end of last season. Obviously, we're going to talk about a little bit later in the opportunities for other defensive tackles, but hopefully Malik will be able to be healthy and be ready for the regular season. And the other one is that Quinshon Judkins is quoted being good to go for this season, which is extremely important for this Browns offense as they try to, get the running game back going with a whole new offensive line in front of them. And, we know Monken has liked to run the ball in his tenure as offensive coordinator where he's been. And, hopefully Judkins will be the big reason why that we're able to do that again.
Yeah, starting with Malik Collins, it's not a surprise. Obviously, the quad injury was so late in the year. We didn't know for sure if he'd be ready for training camp. Obviously, he won't be. And then once he passes a physical, he'll get out there. Obviously, he will be a vital part of the defense up front in the interior part next to Mason Graham. And with Quinshon Judkins, this is good. This is encouraging. Means it was really not as significant of a leg injury as we thought it might be originally. There was, I think, some doubt in the spring that he might not, be full go, but he was showing that burst. He was showing what he was showing prior to the injury, obviously in his rookie season. So for him to be out there, like you said, he's going to be a focal part of this offense. He's going to be the bell cow back in Todd Monken's offense. And I think this could be a breakout year for Quinshon to where he, inserts his name among the top running backs in the league. I wouldn't say he's going to be among the elite of the elite, but he'll definitely be up there, I think, if all things go according to plan this season.
Yeah, I know we'll probably do statistical over under at some point, but I could definitely see him hitting 1,000 yards this season with the focus that they want to put on the running game again.
Absolutely. He was so close last year before the injury. And but yeah, the sky's the limit for Quinshon. The ability is there. They've obviously upgraded the offensive line, and he did what he did last year with a quote unquote bad offensive line, and they've upgraded it. And now, he's back fully healthy. And I do expect Dylan Sampson and perhaps maybe they add a veteran to the mix to that running back room, but Quinshon's going to be the focal point. The sky is the limit for him.
If I had to put a number on it right now, I will say that he will definitely get 1,000, and I think Dylan's going to get 500, 1,500 between the two.
I would love to see it because everybody's kind of down on Dylan after his rookie year, and I'm just obviously the NFL is an adjustment from college football, even from the SEC. But Dylan, he showed that explosion. He showed that playmaking ability. Getting him into a more run-centric offense with an upgraded offensive line, I totally think 500 yards could be in play for him.
Yeah, I believe so as well. And maybe 200-300 receiving yards, if he's able to be a focus in the passing game a little bit. We've seen what he's able to do in the receiving game, so definitely excited to see what he can bring in that aspect as well as to both the running backs. I think we're going to have decent seasons in both of their second years. I do know you approached me yesterday about doing a segment, and I am going to let you kind of take the reins here. Jake, you could just Venmo it to me. That's fine. If you want to split it up, give me 500, give Jackson 500, and just send it to us in Venmo. We'll take it if you're throwing money out there.
I'll take all the human monies I can get.
All right, Danhausen. Jacksonhausen? Does that work? You are cursed?
Yeah.
Hey, when they come to that show, because they're doing the double show, WWE is end of August. Can we get him to uncurse the Browns?
See, I thought
it seemed to work for the Knicks.
I was gonna say he cursed the Browns on I think it was a TikTok or something. So I would wonder if that would uncurse the Browns since we were already cursed. So I don't know how that works. So.
I mean, I don't want to know what a double and triple curse would do to us with all we've had to endure.
We've been cursed fans 20 times over since '99, Anthony. One more.
Even longer than that. Is there a threshold in the number of curses to where it finally reverses? do we have to hit like 25 curses for it to like go back down to 0 and us be clean? Like, how does this all work?
It's a good question.
What I do need though is the Miz to like get on the same page with Danhausen so we can make that happen, because I blame him for a handful of things and him getting cursed recently.
Without a doubt.
All right, enough WWE talk for now.
No, we're good.
So you approached me with a segment, and I will let you take the reins for this one.
Yeah, so I approached Anthony, and I kind of like to do this every year. Whether I've wrote it, I think we've talked about it either on this podcast or if we've guested on a podcast. It's guys that are on the hot seat. So I told Anthony, I said, I'm going to name a Brown. I'm going to say why he's on the hot seat, and then I want Anthony's take on it to see if he agrees or disagrees with me on it. So, and I will say, number one is more than one player, and I'm sure people can probably determine where I'm going at with this, but we're going to start at number 5, of course, and we're going to work our way up. But number 5, I said Cedric Tillman, and he's obviously been the name. Like, if you go on these sites that like to make these lists, like who's the biggest name that'll be cut this offseason? And for the Cleveland Browns, has been Cedric Tillman, which I would say is a good thing because it just means our wide receiver room has gotten better. But it's a bad thing for Cedric because, and I don't want to blame Cedric Tillman for this, but obviously he is on the hot seat. It's the final year of his rookie deal, if I remember correctly. I think he was drafted in 2023. The injury bug just keeps hitting him. We saw the displays of talent in 2024. He had a couple game run with Jameis where he just looked like he was finally starting to show that he was going to be an NFL wide receiver, and then he got concussed. I think it was the New England game or something, and then it just ruined it. And then last year, he just could not get into a rhythm, obviously with the quarterbacks and the whole offensive situation. So now he comes into 2026, and he's on the bubble because the Browns obviously added wide receivers to the mix. Right now, he's probably 5th, 6th, depending on where you want to rank the wide receivers. But his time's ticking. He could be a trade target when cut downs happen, but Cedric Tillman is easily one of the many, or in my top 5, Browns on the hot seat going into 2026.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And if I had more time, I should have made like a hot seat meter for this segment, because he would probably be at a 9 right now. With who they've added this offseason in Concepcion and Boston, Isaiah Bond heading into his second year, having Jerry Jeudy as well. He is probably on the outside looking in at this moment. Unless he has a very strong training camp and a strong preseason, I could definitely see, them moving on from him. Come cut down day, maybe a team trades for him, because he's last year of his deal, right? Going into last year. So, I would be very shocked if he's on this team by the end of training camp. I know they do like to keep, and Barry has like to keep the guys that he's drafted. And obviously Tillman is one of those. Bill Sparks commenting, we save $3.6 million in cap space if we do cut him with no guaranteed money. Thank you for that information, Bill. So I could definitely, see him not being here come final roster cut down.
Yeah,
which opens the door for a guy like Malachi Corley, Luke Floria, to make this team.
Yeah, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. The wide receiver room, especially the back end, is going to be so fascinating to watch. So Tillman, have a strong camp. Go and then get traded to a team and go make an impact there, because unfortunately it's just a numbers game, and it's probably not going to happen in Cleveland.
You know whose seat he is in right now? He is in the Donovan Peoples-Jones seat of a few years ago. That's where he's sitting at right now.
That's a good comp. All right, number 4, Mike Hall Jr., defensive tackle. We mentioned Malik Collins. This is Mike Hall's opportunity right here. He was a second-round pick a couple years ago, has not been able to get going, obviously. Obviously, he had the domestic violence situation, which was his own doing a couple years ago. Obviously, that got settled, was suspended, finally got on the field, and didn't really pop, had an injury last year, just could not get rolling. It hasn't been well for Mike Hall so far this year. Now he's coming into camp. He's going to be lined up opposite Mason Graham to get things rolling on the defensive front to start training camp. make the most of that opportunity, Mike. We know you're talented. We saw you at Ohio State. A lot of us were excited to see you when you got drafted by the Cleveland Browns, obviously from Streetsboro, another Northeast Ohio guy, but you just have not been able to get into a rhythm. Now's your opportunity to get into a rhythm. And we've heard him mention in trade rumors for the last year. I don't know if the Browns are ready to do it. Obviously, like you said, Anthony, Andrew Berry is loyal to his draft picks, but also at the same time, there's guys there around him that can make an impact. Sam Kamara, Aiden Huntington. You have Mason Graham. Obviously, Malik's going to be back soon. They might go out and get another defensive tackle to add to the room. Mike Hall's got to make the most of this opportunity. He has a chance to be a significant rotational player on that defensive line this year and can make an impact and show us he was the guy at Ohio State. But time is ticking on Mike Hall's tenure as a Brown, and he's really got to start being productive on the football field.
Yeah, at the start here, I will put him at a 5 to start the season. If things don't improve, I will definitely raise that to a 7 or 8 as we get towards the end of the year. I would absolutely give him this year. This is his third year in the league. Generally, you see the biggest jumps from the second to third year, so hopefully that's something that he's able to do. His third year, I guess more so like 2.5 because of the suspension that he had his rookie season. But I will give him this year, and going into next year, if he is kind of in the bubble range of not playing a lot, not doing having a production when he's out there, I could definitely see them moving in a different direction, whether that's letting him go, trading him, or just completely moving on. So I'll have him at a 5 to start the year, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, he's only appeared in 17 of 34 games in his first 2 seasons. Only 2.5 sacks, 10 QB hits according to Pro Football Reference, which I think is encouraging. 5 tackles for a loss, 16 total pressures. Though, you got to get on the field and you got to start making more of an impact. I think time's ticking on him. I would love for him to turn into a rotational piece because Malik Collins is up. His contract's up after this year. So the Browns will need to address D-tackle again here in the future. And hopefully Mike Hall can be one of those guys, but he hasn't shown it yet. But the time starts tomorrow to start showing it for sure.
Yep. Best case scenario for the Browns and Mike Hall is he plays really well this season. Malik can move on after this year, and you slide him in there. Maybe if he really proves himself, maybe approach, a 3-year extension or something. And he could be the guy next to Mason Graham for the next few years.
Yep. Yeah. Best case is he pans out, plays well this year in a rotational role. Like you said, Collins leaves. He moves into a full-time starting role next year, and maybe he's one of those mid-season extensions in 2027. You want him to prove himself, but you don't do it on just 1 year. You got to continue to work, and maybe halfway through 2027 he would get an extension, like you said.
But at the end of the segment, you said the word extension. I had a question for you in regards to the Denzel Ward one. We'll swing back to that at the end.
No problem. Number 3, another Buckeye. DeJuan Jones, offensive tackle. Obviously, we have seen the talent on the field of DeJuan Jones, but also every year of his career so far has ended in a season-ending injury, and this is contract year for him as well. He'll be a free agent after the year, and the Browns, I think they still believe in DeJuan Jones. Todd Monken said so as much in radio interviews, that he was impressed with the way DeJuan has been working all offseason. DeJuan has shedded the weight. He's kept it off. But now he's more of a swing tackle, and the Browns obviously weren't banking on him this year. They've invested in tackle heavily, trading for Titus Howard and paying Titus Howard. They drafted Spencer Fano, 9th overall in the draft, and they picked up Austin Barber in the 3rd round out of Florida, who they probably are looking at as the next DeJuan Jones as the developmental tackle piece. So DeJuan, I don't think he'd be on the bubble, but he's definitely on the hot seat to prove himself because we know injuries can happen. DeJuan right now is probably going in as tackle number 3. He's probably that swing guy behind Fano and Howard. Austin Barber's probably not ready to jump DeJuan yet, but this is a big year for DeJuan because if he does get out there on the field, if he can stay healthy and he can show he can be a solid offensive tackle in this league, he'll get paid next offseason in free agency because someone will take a chance on that talent. And we know DeJuan has the talent, but the biggest thing is availability when it comes to him.
Yeah, there's definitely a chance, he could get paid because the tackle is a premium position, and you see, even backup tackles kind of get a decent amount of money in free agencies. I would put him around an 8. I would love to see him be here in the future and grasp one of those starting roles. But if he's nothing more than your third offensive tackle, I would take that too. But staying healthy is the biggest key in all of this. Hopefully, coming back from this injury, Munkin has said that he has lost a lot of weight this offseason, like you mentioned, and hopefully that's something to help get these injuries under control. I know he is a very large human being, and you see those injuries pop up a lot. I don't have the faith at the moment that he'll be able to stay injury free just based on his history, but I would absolutely love to see it. But starting the season here, I would place his hot seat factor at around an 8 out of 10. And if he's unable to stay healthy, definitely not coming back next year.
And I could also see like a team that needs an offensive tackle. Like I could see the Browns taking calls for him and KT Leveston, because those are guys are expendable. Obviously, Levinson has taken some time playing interior, which I'm sure the Browns are taking into account when they construct that offensive line room. Do they see him as a guy that can play inside and outside? Which probably would put Zach Zinter on the bubble. Obviously, he's entering year 3 like Mike Hall and really hasn't shown much yet, despite being a top 100 pick. But DeJuan could be had in a trade, I would assume. But I feel like the Browns should probably hold on to as many good offensive linemen as possible because, Anthony, we've seen the injuries the last couple of years. And when you're down to tackles 3, 4, 5, or guard 2, 3, 4, 5, like it just spells for a disastrous season.
Yeah, and we were talking about a couple weeks ago on our offensive preview, which you guys can check out on our YouTube history, about how it's nice that we have the depth on the offensive line again. And you have to be really sure if you're going to trade somebody like a DeJuan Jones or any of the other offensive linemen that, Austin Barber is ready to go, whether these other backup tackles are good to go and you're confident in them. Is Titus Howard going to pay off in terms of being an acquisition this offseason? You have to be really sure in that if you're going to move away from one of your depth pieces on the offensive line.
Yeah, but I the one good thing with that is I trust the offensive line coach, whose name is George Warhop, who obviously we know had a ton of experience. He's been in Cleveland before, developed Joe Thomas, developed Alex Mack, and some other offensive linemen during their time here. So that's the one good thing I feel good about this room again, is that we have an established veteran coach who has a history of developing offensive linemen. So I feel like he's going to get the most out of these guys. So I'm anxious to see who those 9 or 10 offensive linemen are ultimately going to be in this room.
I do have the faith in him. I don't have the faith in Andrew Berry with offensive linemen just because the history has said otherwise so far.
That's fair. That's fair. It's except Jed was lazy, and that we'll just leave it at that. Good luck to him in Chicago. Number 2 on my hot seat list. It's another wide receiver. It's Jerry Jeudy. Jerry Jeudy has the talent. We've seen it in 2024. Last year, really bad year for him. And one eye-opening stat that I heard on Monday, Anthony, was from Tony Grossi when he was on ESPN Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy has 23 drops in the last 2 seasons. And you compare that to how many touchdowns he scored, it's not a good number. It's not a good statistical ratio for Jerry Jeudy. And the fact that the Browns invested in the wide receiver room so heavily this offseason, drafting Casey Concepcion in the first round, Denzel Boston in the high second round, the fact that they brought Isaiah Bond in last year and gave him a fully guaranteed contract as a UDFA. Time's ticking on Jerry Jeudy. I know it's not his fault to a degree that he's the number 1 receiver, because he's not a number 1 NFL wide receiver. He has to have a productive season this year or he's gone after the 2026 season. He may even be like a trade deadline guy if things aren't going well and a team wants a veteran wide receiver and he's relatively cheap due to his salary. He's not a number 1 wide receiver in terms of contract money. he could be an investment for a team to take a chance on at the deadline that needs wide receiver help. But he has no more excuses. Like the Browns have added help around the wide receiver room, and especially having Harold Fannin and the running backs as well. Like Jerry Jeudy has to have a productive season if he wants to stay in Cleveland. I know he's kind of soured with the media and some of the fans due to his actions, his words, and what have you. And obviously, he stirred up some controversy this past weekend with what he said on social media about the quarterback competition. But Jerry Jeudy's got to have a bounce back season, and it's got to be a productive one, or he won't be a Brown past 2026.
Yeah, I'm gonna put him around a 6. I'm not like as super down on him as others are. I think the fact that they did invest in the wide receiver room this offseason is going to work wonders for him. I think he's going to be able to get back to doing the things that he does really well, and Munkin is going to put him in those sorts of opportunities as long as Concepcion and Denzel Boston are not terrible, and he's not continued to having to play that number one receiver role. As long as Isaiah Bond also kind of helps contribute too. So I'm not as down on Jeudy, like I said, as others. I think if he's able to get back to a lot of those familiar things and, be able to kind of get back more into the slot, I think that'll benefit him greatly. And hopefully with the investments that they made, he's able to do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like when they traded for him, I think it was Daniel Oefusi who said when the Browns traded for him, the plan was it was going to be Cooper and Njoku Judy as your top three playmakers on offense. And then obviously Cooper gets traded because the season got off the rails. Njoku didn't stay in the form that he did in his 2023 season. And then things just went sideways, obviously. And Judy was thrusted into the number one role. He had great moments with Jameis Winston, but it was a matter of like he's not a number one wide receiver, but he has to be because the Browns just don't have talent in that room.
Yeah, that's something, unfortunately they've been lacking talent in that receiver room for like real good talent. I know we've had Cooper for those couple years, but real talent in that wide receiver room has been hard to come by for whatever reason. And I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the quarterback play, which could only, be the only remaining excuse that he has to whether or not he has a good season. And hopefully, the quarterback play does get better, and we'll get to that here in a second. But I'm just very interested to see what he can do this year with the quarterback play that we're going to have, because that's the wild card in all of this.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of spoiled my number one, but I don't think it's a secret.
I think it was pretty obvious for where we were headed here, just because it's going to be the conversation that dominates all the training camp.
Yeah,
just like it seems to do every single year.
Yeah, and it's the number one on the hot seat list. I'm just going to say quarterbacks, but I'm not going to count Taylor Green because he's a 6th round developmental prospect. Like we're not going to throw him on the hot seat already. I know people are going to be excited about him in the preseason and what they're going to be able to do there, but I'm looking specifically at Deshaun Watson, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, all 3 of those, because their football livelihoods all could change if things do not go well this upcoming season for any of them, if they have to play and things just don't go well. Let's start with Deshaun Watson. Obviously, we know his history. Two pretty close, lengthy absences of nearly 700 days when you count the rotator cuff injury. Let's actually go back. Obviously his off the field issues, that was a lengthy absence. He had the shoulder injury, and that was a lengthy absence. He comes back, has double Achilles ruptures. So now he's on another close to 700-day absence from the football field. He's entering the final year of this contract. Sorry, I'm going to say it. Thank you, football gods. This is almost over. We don't know what he's going to look like. There's been mixed reports about how he's looked on the football field, but right now he's entering the phrase QB1. If things don't go well, Anthony, his NFL career is probably over after this year. I'm sure a team may take a chance on him, but I doubt it, given all the baggage that comes with him, the scrutiny. Like, You go on social media and you look at TikToks and Instagram reels and they bring up the Browns and Deshaun Watson. A lot of people are not fans of that. So that just says it for itself. He doesn't play well, his football career is over. If Shedeur Sanders doesn't win the QB competition, which a lot of people are hoping he's going to, he's probably going, and this is speculation on my part, he's probably going to ask for a trade out of Cleveland. If not him, his people in his camp are probably going to try to force his way out of Cleveland because they feel like the Browns aren't giving him a fair chance. Even if he does win the starting job and has a struggling 2026 season, he's probably out of Cleveland because he won't be the backup to the rookie quarterback, and then his career will move forward. Dylan Gabriel, he could be the odd man out in terms of a numbers game. We'll see come the end of training camp. But you're looking at he's probably going to be a backup, which won't be a bad thing. You can carve out a 10-year, 12-year career as a backup quarterback. We've seen it with Colt McCoy. We've seen it with Chase Daniel and other guys. You can make a lot of money as a backup quarterback in this league. But I feel like all three of those guys, their NFL paths are going to sway and move one way or another if they don't perform well this coming season. And I think it's going to be the most interesting quarterback competition we've seen in quite some time here in Cleveland.
So, in terms of like the hot seat meter, Dylan Gabriel is probably about a 12 out of 10. I don't see him being on this roster after training camp. I could see, them releasing him and then trying to squeeze him onto their practice squad because they do, like him as like the scout team guy. That's kind of what he's been able to do. But I don't see him being here. So I'm going to focus on Watson and Sanders. And both of these guys are definitely a 10 out of 10 for sure in terms of the hot seat, because if they don't play well, neither one will be here next season and we're drafting somebody in the first round. It'll be a whole new quarterback room next year. So, look, it is, and there was a lot of discussion on the one radio show this afternoon about a certain quarterback in free agency next year. And look, if that's what we're talking about now as players report to training camp, doesn't that just like really give an idea of where this quarterback room is and, how much of a struggle it's going to be this season? And I hope that, Shedeur or whoever proves us wrong, but I just don't see it at this moment. Like, I don't think if they put Shedeur out there that he's going to be, terrible and you have to, you're not going to watch football games because of how bad it is. But I just think it's going to be mid, below average to mid, at this point. And, that below average to mid might get you 5 wins, maybe just enough to get you out of being in the running for one of the top quarterbacks next year. Look, it's a tough spot to be in. We haven't figured this out yet. Maybe, and maybe put it at like a 5% chance that, one of these two guys will be the starter next year, which is a very low percent. But, if Shedeur or whoever can figure it out and can tell us that they're going to be the guy, that's great. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, Deshaun Watson, we have to see how he's going to look physically. We don't know. We've seen videos on social media. Obviously, we see the arm looks okay at moments, but doesn't look consistently good. And that was some of the reports during the spring. We don't know how he looks explosively, how he's going to be able to run, because coming off a double Achilles rupture, we don't know how he looks athletically, physically, what have you. Shedeur's reportedly made strides. We'll see how he looks in a better offense with Todd Monken. But we got to see growth. Obviously, his footwork has improved from what I've seen in videos and what people have said. We just got to see him out there with a better supporting cast, and we'll see if that helps. But I can't sit here, and I'm a Shedeur Sanders fan as well. I want to see him do well. I was obviously a fan of him coming out of Colorado. I just need to see growth out of him to make me feel secure about him being the long-term answer at quarterback. Today, on July 28th, I can't say that. In a month after training camp and a couple preseason games, even though I'll take those with a grain of salt, Like, if they're saying he's making growth and he looks like a solid NFL quarterback, then you go into the season and you see how it goes. But you can't sit here today on July 28th and say the Browns have their franchise quarterback yet, because I don't believe it.
And you know who we need to pay attention to in terms of the honest conversation about how these guys look? Zach Jackson. Because the last couple of years, he's really been the truly one and looking at these guys in practice and has really told it how it is, and he was right. So if there's anybody that is there media member wise that could give us a good idea of how this is going to go, it's Zach.
Without a doubt. Zach doesn't try to give us propaganda and BS. Like, he gets out there and he tells it like it is. And Daryl Ryder's been kind of leaning that way as well. I hope he stays that way, but there's some media members out there you can see through that they have an agenda, and they're out there for the content.
Zach Jackson ain't putting out any quarterback trackers or anything of that nature.
Can't wait for tomorrow. So excited.
You're ready for the quarterback tracker, aren't you? You're ready to see that.
No, I'm going to avoid social media tomorrow. I might have to mute a certain radio station. No offense to some of the people there, because I love them, but yeah, I can't do the quarterback tracker, because it's not a fair thing to judge this QB competition on.
When I go next week, I should come up with a ridiculous tracker to post. Just some off the wall thing that I see, just as kind of a spoof on what they do.
I need handshakes. I need pats
Water
of the
bottles.
ball. Pats of the ball. Yeah.
I'll figure out something.
We'll come up with something here that'll just be hilarious.
Yeah, I feel like that's something I have to do.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to see it again, here is my top 5. Browns on the hot seat. I made a little AI graphic at one point while Anthony was talking. Cedric Tillman, Mike Hall Jr., DeJuan Jones, Jerry Jeudy, the quarterbacks. Anthony, was there anybody else that I missed that you can think of that's should be on the hot seat coming into the season?
Off the top of my head, I don't know if I would qualify this as the hot seat, but I'm really intrigued by how this offensive line is going to look. You know, you have a whole bunch of new guys out there, and I don't know if any one particular of those guys besides DeJuan, that we talked about, that I would be ready to, move on from after 1 year. But the offensive line is going to determine all of our success offensively this year. I feel like, just because if they can't put it together in the run game, we're not going to be able to run the ball. If they're not able to protect the quarterbacks, are we really going to be able to evaluate one of these guys? So the offensive line is just something I'm going to be paying really close attention to.
I would agree. I think that's going to be a big part. Like I said, that's why I'm trying to limit expectations, just because there's a whole new offensive line. There's new parts and pieces on offense, new play caller, just new everything. Like, the only thing that's still there is Harold Fannin Jr., Quinshon Judkins, and Shedeur Sanders, if he's the name of the starting quarterback. Everything else is basically brand new.
Yeah, and just intrigued by how that's all going to work out. And hopefully we're not talking about kickers again. I don't want to deal with that.
They didn't bring in. I don't think anybody's in except Andre Schmidt. So, which I don't know if that's a good thing. I know we got a couple punters, but it looks like they're giving the reins to Schmidt, which I guess is a good thing. But we'll see. Yeah, he's the only one. So,
and they brought back Bjorkwas, too. So that was a big thing.
But he has competition. So there's 3 punters on the roster right now: Nick Constantino and Wes Paul. So there's 3 punters.
We'll see. Did they give him an extension?
Just a 1-year deal.
Just a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably not.
Somebody in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's only a 1-year deal for Bojo.
All right. Speaking of extensions, I'm going to swing back to my question that I had for you. But before I do, if anybody listening in the chat has any questions, we will get those in now, and we will get to them after this brief topic here. But speaking of extensions, there's been a lot made on the status of Denzel Ward's contract, who was able to get one today. Is Grant Delpit next?
You would think so. And Daniel Olafusi of, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name right because Daniel does a great job for
I
ESPN.
think that's right.
Uh,
And he does a great job. And I don't loop him in with the rest of the people at ESPN Cleveland just because he is so above
no,
everybody else.
he's ESPN. He's the worldwide leader. He is not. But he says that like Ward and Delpit could be next. They want to get an extension done. For Delpit. So I'm just like, I'm fascinated because Ronnie Hickman's there too. So is Hickman going to be the odd man out? Because I feel like he's played well. He's earned a contract extension. Maybe it just won't be with Cleveland. Maybe he's asked for too much. But yeah, I can see Delpit being up next. I'm going to be fascinated tomorrow if we see Denzel Ward's not participating, or not Denzel, Grant Delpit's not participating in team drills or anything, and it becomes like a hold-in situation. But that's definitely a storyline to watch here in the first week of training camp.
Yeah, I would love to continue to have him. I think he could definitely continue to be a big factor on defense. And, like Denzel, he's one of the veteran guys of this defense now. So I would certainly love to keep him there.
Yeah, unquestionably. Like, even if it's like a 2 to 3 year extension and you sequence it with Emmanuel McNeil Warren to where you can extend him and then that kicks in after Delpit's deal is up. But Delpit's been solid, been one of the good underrated safeties in this league. I would have no qualms if the Browns gave him another extension. It's just the money's got to be right because you don't want to overpay him. I think you just got to find that sweet spot, like where he ranks among the safeties and where do you feel comfortable with what that salary is going to be in the next couple years as he continues to get older.
Yeah, he'll be 28 in late September. I could see like a 3-year extension to kind of getting him around the same timeline as Denzel Ward, and a 3-year extension would be, as you mentioned, the final rookie year of McNeil Warren's rookie deal. So, that would play right along into that sequencing part.
For sure. We do have a question from our boy Jake, who's obviously a contributor here at the Dawgland as well. Says the question to you and me, Anthony, who wins the starting quarterback job?
I feel like there's two different answers in my head because it's who will win versus who I want to win. I think are two different answers. I think Watson will win the starting job, but I would prefer if it was Shador who started.
See, I'd like to cop out and say, ask me again next week after we've had what
You
4 or 5.
reserve the right to change your mind.
Yeah, can I reserve the right to change my mind? To quote our former head coach, but it's exactly what you said, Anthony. In my heart, I want it to be Shador Sanders. With my head, it's probably going to be Deshaun Watson. And I hate to say that. I'm like, Anthony, I think we've kind of tried to beat around the bush the last couple of years when it comes to Deshaun Watson. I don't like him. I know you don't like him. I know a lot of the Browns fans don't like him. But he's the quarterback on the team. And unfortunately, we have to talk about him. I would have to think he's probably going to win this quarterback competition, but we'll see. Like in a week, Jake is now mad. We've made Jake mad. Jake, I'm sorry. Like, I know it's disappointing. In a week, especially come Sunday, Monday, when the pads get put on, that's when we're really going to start to see, I think, the difference in this competition. Because we've seen how they are in shorts and shells and all this. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, there's been concerns about Deshaun's arm. Mary Kay's reported that. But this is not a fun quarterback competition because I don't see like the future in sight. And that's unfortunate. Like NMC, listen, we got to get our information somewhere. And unfortunately we have to listen to and read to Mary Kay and Tony Grossi and Daryl and Zach and all the rest of the great Browns beat writers that are there every day. Like that's where we get our information and that's where we analyze and break this all down. But we'll see what happens. Obviously, training camp starts tomorrow. I don't think we'll get a solid indication here these first few days of practice, but like come next week when the pads get on, I think everything will start to get clearer.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm excited to get to training camp next week because I am really going to pay as close attention as I can to the quarterbacks and what these guys are able to do. So I'll actually be able to see with my own two eyes what I think, and we'll might have a change of opinion after we see that, but we'll approach that after those practices.
For sure.
Anything else before you get out of here? Anybody else have anything in the chat before we sign off for the evening?
MC says, I bet Zach says Shador.
I would prefer that.
I think we'd all would prefer Jake. I can only it's gonna be so fun to see that tomorrow when that first QB tracker comes out and everybody's gonna like draw conclusions, start parades, everything. Like it's gonna be. I'm just gonna sit back and watch.
No more parades. The only parade is the Super Bowl parade. We don't need any more 0-16. Other parades.
Yeah.
The next one I want to see is a Super Bowl one, which who knows when that will be.
I agree. Hopefully,
did you see? And we need to talk about the AFC North as a whole at some point and kind of recap the offseason for them. But the odds for the Browns to win the AFC North is plus 2,100.
I did not. That's an interesting bet.
Yeah. I can't remember who was the top, but they're like minus 180, and then the next few teams were like 400, 500, and then the Browns were plus 2,100.
It's not surprising.
Which not winning a division title in almost 40 years would probably do that.
It hasn't been almost 4. Well, yeah, it's 37. Yeah, it's about right.
Yeah, it's going to be close to 40 years.
We're getting up there. We'll say, yes,
unfortunately, we are.
I will say, everybody who's been watching, thank you. Make sure you hit that like button on the way out and go watch our brothers, the Barking Browns. They're getting right. They're starting up right now, so we're gonna we're gonna wrap this up and go watch them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, go watch them on their show. Bill, who's in here earlier, I'm sure he'll be on there as well tonight. So we'll see everybody next time. Be sure to give Jack a follow over on X at JackMcCurry08. Give me a follow at Anthony Joki, JOKI. The Dawgland on every platform, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, all at the same handle, which is the Dawgland. And always remember, as we get on out of here, go Browns.
Go Browns.